Thank you so much for joining us at the Empowerment Zone. My name is Lina Khalife. I am the founder of SheFighter, and I'm your host for today. The Empowerment Zone focuses on highlighting the achievements of women in martial arts, entrepreneurs, feminists, women in general all over the world to share their stories and experiences with everybody. Today, my guest is from UK. Gulshen Bano. Did I mention your name right? Gulshen, right?
Gulshen, yeah.
Gulshen.
Oh, Gully. Everybody calls me Gully.
Gully Bano, and she's an owner and instructor at Strike Back Self-Defense for Women. She started learning Krav Maga a number of years ago. She was looking for a martial arts or a skill that would allow her to feel safe, and she was out and about, so she wanted to feel safe. So she's a mom of two little boys, so often felt like vulnerable and an easy target. She's the only Asian and Muslim female Krav Maga instructor in the UK. So please welcome Guli Bano from UK.
Hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Lina.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. And I want to start first by explaining to the audience, the people, what's Krav Maga, because a lot of people don't know about different martial arts. Just explain Krav Maga to the audience.
Okay, so Krav Maga is, it's Hebrew for close contact. That's what it means, close contact or close combat. So it's got its origins in Hungary. So there was a gentleman that started off in Hungary. And initially it's a mix of a lot of different martial arts. It's got a mix of boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, BJJ, a lot of different sort of combinations in there. He was looking for something at the time to help the Jews in Hungary who were being persecuted. And he was a martial artist himself with experience of lots of different things. And he put them together to form a system which sort of the everyday person could use to help protect themselves. So that's the original origins. And then it's sort of expanded across the world now, and it's used in many different countries in different forms. So the police have a sort of particular form they use, the military use it in many countries in a militarized form. And we have what we teach or what we use, civilian Krav Maga. So different countries, according to the law, we can use different things. I mean, in the UK, we don't use guns or have gun laws. So it's slightly different to what you would possibly do or teach in the US. But primarily, the basis of Krav Maga is all the same all across the world. The sort of like the basic moves and the ideology is the same.
Yeah, but do you use like rubber guns or rubber knives?
Yeah, so we train, absolutely. Yeah, we train with we have so Krav Maga, it's got a number of sort of professional bodies, KMG, which is the one that I'm part of in the UK. There's IKMF, so it's sort of split into a couple of different bodies. But the syllabus is primarily stayed the same. So we have sort of all your basic defences in terms of self-defence. So things like defences against chokes or grabs or bear hugs or hair pulls, etc., which is great for the civilian use. And then it goes up to slightly higher levels. So we have defences against knives, knife attacks, stabs, slashes, and then taking it a little bit further, especially in countries where they do have guns, sort of gun defences, rifles, pistols. So it's quite a broad expanse of subject matters it covers.
And you were a pharmacist, right?
I wasn't. I still call myself a pharmacist. I am a pharmacist. So I've been a pharmacist for 22 years this year. So yeah, a long time.
Do you still practice?
I do try and keep my hand in. It's getting more and more difficult, but I do try and keep my hand in because I do love. So that was always my career, and that's like where I started at med school and did pharmacy. So that was the career I chose, and I love that side of my life where, you know, helping people and everything that comes with pharmacy. I'm also a cupping therapist, a hijama therapist, so I practice hijama as well. So I have
my that's amazing.
Yeah, so I have my therapy side, so I beat you up and then I fix you. But no,
it's good. You give them medicine after.
That's
here you go. Stop crying. Here you go,
that's
medicine. What got you into Krav Maga, since you were like a pharmacist? Who introduced you to the concept? Tell me about it.
So I was looking, so I've got two little boys. I mean, they're a little bit older now, but at the time they were very small. My youngest was only 2 and the older one was 4. And I was often out and about with them sort of after school, and they were doing sort of football classes or different activities. And I often thought, if something happened, and we're in the UK, and over the years, various things and just the way crime rate is, etc. I often thought, if I was approached or somebody approached me and I've got my 2 little ones, would I be able to protect them and myself? So I started looking for something that I needed that would help me keep myself safe and them safe. But I wasn't really interested in doing the traditional sort of karate or judo. I wanted something a bit more practical and hands-on. And I just happened on a Google search to come across Krav Maga, and there happened to be a Krav Maga school literally around the corner from where I live, just down the road. And I thought, I'm going to give it a go, just pop in and see. It was just curiosity that got the better of me. So off I did, I went along and just thought I'll try it and see how it is. And literally after the first session, I was hooked. I was absolutely addicted.
You're like, that's it. I'm staying here for life.
That was it. Yeah, it was. There were so many aspects of it that just made sense to me.
Yeah.
I'm not young, so I wasn't starting this in my 20s or as a teen. It was in my early 40s when I started this.
Oh, really?
So yeah, I'm not a youngster.
You look very young, by the way.
Thank you. It keeps me fit. But I needed to get fitter. So I was looking for something I could use. And often sort of karate and judo is seen something that you start in your sort of early teens or maybe even earlier and you follow it through. So I knew I didn't have a lot of time to be doing like katas. I needed something very hands-on and very practical.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And absolutely. And Krav fitted that perfectly.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, for me, I just felt it when I was in Taekwondo. I'm like, I knew it. It's like for life. You just know it.
You just, absolutely.
But as you said, the difference with the different martial arts, like you have to start really young. Like Taekwondo, they will kick you out if you start, or they don't have, they're not that rude with people. If you come like at the age of like even like 25, they even call you grandpa or grandma.
I mean,
they're so bad. When I was 21, they started calling me, "Oh, you're a grandma now. You lost your speed." I'm like, "What is this? Are you trying to?" Which is so totally true. You kind of lose your speed. Like when you're younger, it's easier to jump. It's easier to kick. It is just But then I don't know it's actually after the first injury, and you're like done.
It is. I mean, don't get me. We have in clubs and in clubs in the UK, we have people in their 60s, 65, 70s doing it because it's a very sort of hands-on, and it's like any martial art. It does get you very, very fit, doesn't it? So you do get fitter, and it's a great way to get fit. But for me, it's like you said, I didn't have the time to start at that first point. I needed something that it was very here and now. And literally after the first lesson, I knew what I'd learned. Even in that first lesson, I thought it's practical. I could actually go out, and if I needed to use this right now, I've gained a skill that even from the first lesson I can use. I just happened to have walked into a lesson where they were doing sort of if you end up on the floor and somebody has, is on top of you, or they're trying to get to it, what would you use to defend yourself? And so I happened to end up. So at the time when I was learning, it was a predominantly male club. There was a couple of females and myself, but it was mainly guys. And I ended up with this. I ended up with this big bloke sitting on me, and my instructor was like, "I'm going to teach you how to get him off." And I did it. It was a skill. It was a bridging skill. It was a bridge and roll and tuck and throw. Yeah. And I thought, and I'm not big, Lina. I'm 5 foot and 7 stone, so I'm quite a petite lady. Yeah. And I mean, that was a shock anyway to be straight thrown into it. But I did it, and he taught me the skill and the technique to do it. And obviously, the more you practice, the better you get. Your core gets stronger, and it's a skill. But the fact that I could do this from the very first lesson, or I knew, or I was developing the skills, for me, it was a game changer. It was exactly what I was looking for. Yeah. And that was it. I thought, this is what I'm looking for. This is perfect.
A lot of people ask me sometimes, do I need a lot of strength to, flip someone? Or they just think it's strength, but they don't know it's a technique. So, can you tell women, especially because they come to me and they're like, "Oh, no, I have weak arms. I don't think I can, flip like anybody on top of it." I'm like, it's a technique.
It is. I mean, I say to my ladies all the time, it's something I do say that if I'm 5 foot and 7 stone and my teenage girls that I teach are taller and bigger than me, and I say to them, if I can do it, you can do it. There is I am the smallest probably I'm easily the smallest in my ladies class, but a lot of the teens tower over me and they just look down, and I'm looking up at them when I'm trying to teach them. But it's great because it gives them a point of, well, Gully, you can do it. So there's no reason why I could do it. And especially for the younger ones who say, "Oh, I'm too small." And there's no such thing as too small. Everything we teach, there's adaptations. We can adapt. So when I started learning, and my instructor is fantastic, but So he always used to come over to me and he'd say to me, right, Gully, so if this isn't going to work, try this. This will certainly work. Because the dynamics and the physiology, everybody is different. And what will work really easily, maybe for a 6'4", 6'5" guy who's 15 stone, will not necessarily work for me perfectly without some adaptations. And that's what I loved about Krav, that there was always some adaptation we could make. And I say that to the ladies now in my class who come in, and they, similar to you, Lina, they'll say to me, I'm not fit enough, or, you know, I'm too big. And I'll say, it doesn't matter. Everything's a starting point. Everybody starts somewhere. And, you know, I have some ladies who have hip problems. So they, you know, we do some fitness. They can't squat. They can't do this. And I say, I'm not asking you to head kick. You don't need a head kick for self-defense. You just need to be able to adapt the technique to what you're going to do. And there will always be something we can do to adapt it, which for me is what the beauty of Krav is. That it's adaptable. It's real. It's for real people to be able to use as they need it.
It actually reminds me of a quote that says, if you think you're too small to make an impact, have you tried to go to bed with a mosquito?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because a mosquito will kill you. You can't even defend yourself from mosquito. Mosquitoes are but it means like you're never too small to make a difference, even for kids, for teenagers. I mean, look at Greta. She did like huge difference, and she's like small.
Absolutely.
Like never underestimate your abilities, for sure.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
And tell me about your self-defense studio for women. I mean, I'm always happy to hear about a lot of women opening self-defense studios for women, because I think we don't have enough in the world. We need like when I was in Jordan, there's like hundreds of boxing clubs for men, and they have classes for women, but it's specifically for men. So I'm like, we need more of self-defense studios for women. So tell me more about your studio.
So I don't have my own place, but we have places that we rent and we use. So for me, once I'd started sort of learning, I knew, and even at the time, it was predominantly a very male-orientated sort of. There's some really, really big guys in there, and there was a few ladies. There was myself and a couple of others who I used to remember. They were a higher level than me at the time, and I remember looking at them, and from second lesson, I thought I want to be like her. I was looking across at this particular girl who's actually one of my best friends now. And she was my inspiration. And she's not a big girl, but I remember looking at her and the power behind her punches and her kicks. And like I said, she's one of my best friends now, girls. And I thought, that's who I want to be like. And that was it. That was my goal. Then I want to be like her. But again, there weren't many women at all. And as I progressed through the system, and as you get higher and higher, there are less and less women. It's always more blokes doing it. Whether it's for whatever reasons. I mean, it is difficult. It's difficult to put the training in a lot of the time, especially if you've got family commitments. And I mean, I'm a mum of 2 boys, and there's been plenty of times I've left my little one crying in the window as I go off to train. It's hard. It is hard. It takes commitment. And I think that's where often at higher levels we lose ladies and we lose women taking it further up. But I remember, so I was doing my Krav and I was progressing at the system. And at the same time, I was doing I had a hijama therapy room, and I was treating a lot of Muslim ladies, hijabis, non-hijabis, and we'd start talking, we'd start chatting, and I'd say, "Oh, I'm doing this," and it's quite an unusual sort of job or a thing to be doing, certainly as an Asian or a Muslim female. And they'd be like, "Oh wow, are you able to teach me something?" And suddenly we'd talk, and they'd come out with things like, "Do you know I was walking down the road and this happened to me?" Or, "Do you know I was at the train station and somebody pushed me," or "Somebody pulled my hijab." And the more they'd say it, the more it suddenly occurred to me that there's so many women out there that really, really need to learn this. But the fact that there's nowhere for them to go is stopping them. So I remember having a conversation with my instructor at the time and explain all this. And he said to me, he goes, "Why don't you do it? Why don't you become an instructor? Why don't you go and do this? Because there's clearly a void, or there's a place for somebody like you to be able to teach this." And without being an instructor, I didn't feel, safe or feel that I could teach them. But I thought certainly if I'm an instructor and I've got my own club and it's a safe place for these women to be able to come, I can do this. And so that's where Strike Back Self-Defense for Women was born. It was a place just from a need that the more women I spoke to, the more I felt there's nowhere for the very women that need to learn this. There's nowhere for them to go. because whether it's for cultural or religious reasons or other reasons, you know, often it's an abusive background or triggers, they don't want to go to a club where there's men or there's males. And they don't want to go in the evening often.
If you notice, there's a lot of martial arts and boxing clubs, and you know, just they don't even have a changing room for women. Yeah. And what do you expect? Like I even tell them, how do you expect you have more demand of women if you don't even have facilities for women? It's like they completely exclude them, that they're not going to join. And this is so bad. And what I notice also, a lot of grants are not going for women in self-defense. I mean, there's probably not, but there's like really few that if you talk about violence against women, or you can then apply to some grants, but there is not much funding opportunities, investment going to women who wants to set up their own academies of self-defense. And if I always say, when I become a billionaire one day, hopefully I will definitely invest in women who want to set up self-defense academies, martial arts schools, any kind of, also like, even if it's a small business that for a lot of people, especially men, doesn't seem that it makes a lot of profit, like the tech industry. I mean, we should invest in that, because you actually can build an empire, and you can help change a lot of problems if you just focus on like taking it step by step. And as you said, having facilities, having safe environment for women where they can go, you know, talk to you, and where they don't even have to feel like they have to dress really well because there's men around, or they're going to judge how they look, or they're going to sweat or not, or because most girls would think that way. They say, okay, what if I do the ground attack, for example, and you know, let's say something showed in my pants, or especially if she's a Muslim too, then her parents or her husband will tell her, you know, like, oh, this is not a good place to train. But I mean, like, your training, your system, your even like space that you provide for women is just amazing. They can just sweat and
So my philosophy was, I wanted my club to be a safe space for women. I wanted women to be able to come, so there's no judgment, and that's something I say to all the women that come: leave the judgment at the door. When we are here on my training mats, we leave there is no judgment. It's a safe space where if you want to share your story, you can absolutely share your story. But whatever happens on our training ground stays in here, and it's a safe place to whether you want to indulge your story, whether you want to, you know, help speak to other women or share. And we found that the more women spoke about their stories, the more other women said, actually, you know what, that happened to me, and that happened to me. And it became this fabulous place which is what the dream was, which is what I absolutely wanted. And it's the same with the teens. They're at that age, it's an awkward age. They don't want to train with boys because they feel the boys are looking at them, they feel shy. If it's somebody who's wearing a hijab, they want to be able to train to take off the hijab and not feel that somebody's looking.
Exactly.
If they want to wear, you know, take off their abaya, they can take off their abaya. And we'll have blinds, the doors are shut, it's a completely no male zone. But even with the teens, we found that the more I shared, we deal a lot, and I speak a lot about sort of street harassment and sexual harassment on the street, and sort of being catcalled. And it's such a common problem that even as an instructor, when I started this, I didn't realize how common it was. So now it's something we really do focus on, especially in the girls' classes, now to deal with harassment. And I'll say even to some of the younger ones, and do you know what they will say to me? Do you know that happened to me? Do you know a guy such and such, or a grown man, or such and such? And it shocks me still to the core that these things are happening. But until there was this space for these girls to come just with other girls and other women where they feel safe enough to divulge that information, there was nowhere. So it's almost like the very people that need to learn this, the very women that this needs to reach, there was nowhere for them to go to do this. So for me, that was the belief when I started Strike Back, that's what it was going to be, and you know, and fabulously, we're there, we're a place where that is happening. So, and that fills me with joy. That really does. So.
Oh, for sure. I mean, have you, like, I had the studio in Jordan was filled with packed with a lot of girls, teenagers, women. And sometimes I would get women who are from Germany, or, you know, all the time I get expats coming to training. But some of them used to tell me, oh, you know, this thing work with only Muslim, but we don't need such a thing because we can train with men. But that's a false information, because I get a big number of women coming. They're not Muslim. They're not. They come from different backgrounds. They come from America. They come from Germany. They just prefer to train in a women environment, self-defense studio.
So I mean, I was talking about sort of hijab is a Muslim, but my club is I mean, if you ever see the pictures that we have on Facebook and Instagram, it's a mix of everybody. There is no, you know, we don't say it is specific for this or it's specific. It's for every kind of woman. And I have women, I have older women, I have younger ladies, I have university students. But your religion, your background, your creed, your colour, nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's just a space for women. Full stop, and that's all it is. And and the bigger the mix is, the better the club becomes, because it increases an understanding, and you get to meet people that maybe you wouldn't have had a chance to speak to, and it develops an understanding. But I think with women, there's a fabulous camaraderie that it doesn't matter what your creed color. Once you're there and you're training together, your problems are everybody's problems, and everybody's problems are your problems. And that's a brilliant sort of space and philosophy to have in the club. So I love that about the club.
Yeah, I'm glad. I hope you open like many studios in UK, so so you empower, or someone would like come with you and be partner or invest in your clubs, because I feel like men, that would be the last thing they want to put their hands on, is to invest with women.
You know, there's a lot of really good. I mean, my instructors. So my senior instructor, Al, he's a guy, and there are some really good guys out there, and there's some really good male instructors who do believe it. But I think ultimately, and we were doing hair pulls and doing sort of hijab pulls and hair pulls the other day in class, and when I often trained with the men in the club, when I was training, they usually had hair sort of like that big, if hair at all. And I was saying to the girls, do you know what? This is one of those things which you've got to be a girl to understand how it feels to have your hair pulled. You can't train this with a guy with no hair at all, because they just don't understand the pain. So I think the guys, I think the male instructors are great, and I give them a huge amount of credit. But I think and for me, certainly, to be a small 5-foot woman at 7 stone, you've got to be in my shoes to understand the issues. And so when I often train and at higher level, because there's less and less women, at sort of the gradings I go to, they're often, you know, really, really big guys, and really, really sort of 6 foot plus. And when somebody's 6 foot plus, 17 stone plus, punches you or hits you, you've got to be this size to understand what that feels. And when I'm often explaining it to other guys, the only way I can relate to them is to say, well, somebody who's 6'5" is 1.5 foot bigger than me. So if you're 6 foot, imagine a 7.5 foot guy who's 35 stone hitting you. Now you tell me how that would. So that proportionality, they've never had to face that. They don't understand that's the physiology or the dynamics behind that. And I think that's where women understand. We know, you know, however you look at it, whatever equality you want, physiologically, often we are smaller and we are not going to have that sort of strength balance. And I don't think guys always get that. So even in my club, I often have to say, no, I can take most punches and I can train with most guys. But often I will have to say to a 6 foot player, if we are training, you need to level this up a little bit, because it's supposed to be a safe training space. But when you are doing that, and if you do that to a lady or a young girl who's come in for the first time and she feels that force, she's not going to come back to that club to train. It's not a safe space. That's where, absolutely. And that's where I think the women's only and the women's only classes hold their own, because we do have that understanding. And people often say to me, oh, it's a girls' class or it's a women's school. I don't teach pink and fluffy Krav. I teach Krav, and it's as simple as that. It's not pink, it's not fluffy, it's the same Krav, but it's just adapted to the students that we have. So I just think we have a better understanding of, as women, how to train women.
Definitely. I mean, the martial arts industry is dominated by men. So men believe that they are better teachers than women. I'm sure you have faced that.
All the time.
They used to go to my clients, and they would never understand why SheFighter was packed with women. They did not understand it. They're just, I felt like they're too dumb to understand. But they used to go to women and tell them, you're training with a pussy. They used to say that. And they say, we are the real coach. We know how to teach you because we are men and we're going to attack you and show you how it's going to be. You don't go train with a female instructor. Have you faced this kind of attack? Because I faced a lot from men, haters, who are like, would say, it's just a competition when you take all the women from the market, and they're wondering why they don't have a balance in their classes.
I think for a lot of men, it's an insecurity, isn't it? They feel threatened, and it's their own insecurity. So I've got women instructors who are friends, and they're great. It's almost like a sisterhood. You'll find women with each other don't need to be like that because we just have this understanding. Yeah. But I find the men feel threatened, and not all the men. I will add that it's not all the men, yeah. But not there's a good proportion, absolutely,
good percent.
Yeah, absolutely, that have this insecurity with women and women instructors and women sort of teaching and having their own schools. So I'm on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, etc., and we put a lot of posts out, and I get trolled so much, Lina, so much. I get men will message me privately, get in a ring with me, I'll show you. It's like, so I've developed over it took so its toll, but I've developed a much thicker skin to it, and you ignore the messages, but there's a huge undercurrent, and unfortunately a lot of it, for me, I find, certainly living in the UK, a lot of it comes from other Muslim men. Specifically here in actually there's a fair proportion of and I found there's other instructors in the area, so not my own instructors in my own school or my own sort of organization, but other instructors. When my club started, it was suddenly this new kid on the block and this new girl who's appeared from nowhere opening a Krav Maga school, and I had a lot of sort of insults and who do you think you are, how are you even qualified? So it's there, this undercurrent is there.
But have you noticed that they never attack men? They just attack the women. They never attack men. And sometimes what makes me really sad is having a woman also standing by men's side and saying, you know what, this is not gender equality because you're focusing on women and you don't have a balance with men. I'm like, there's thousands of gyms and boxing clubs for women. I have one studio
and you have a problem with
the country, and you tell me that it's not fair. I need to make it mixed classes. And I'm like, oh my God, when a woman just stand there and just stand by the men's side,
the women that did it,
and I'm like, I understand men, they're threatened because they know that women would go to females instructors. I always, when I was a kid, I was always looking for a female instructor because I got harassed many times by male instructors in the training, and it just made me uncomfortable. So I had to drop out. And I never explained that it was hard for me to speak to my parents about it. They would make a big problem, but like having females standing against you is really bad.
That's tough. That's tough, isn't it? That is tough. It's ironical because my very first Krav class that I went to, the one I was telling you about, it just and the very fact of the defense we were training at the time, and the guy that I was training with, he ended up inadvertently harassing me. Just through, he saw this petite female who knew nothing that had come in. He'd been training there a while. And the irony of it was I was there to train Krav, and yet I had this guy who was a partner who would then, when we used to train, make a beeline to become my partner every time because he could harass and he could make sort of undercurrent remarks and things. And I didn't feel confident enough to approach. I mean, my instructor's one of my, really good friends now. But at the time, I didn't know him well enough to say. And I remember after the third session coming home to my husband, and I thought, I'm going to have to tell him. And I said to him, there's this guy, and this is what he's saying to me. And so, I mean, my husband is amazing. He's such an amazing supporter of women. But Krav and martial arts isn't his thing at all. He just says, I don't want to fight. He's a real softy, but he's just the most lovable person in the world. Yeah. I remember saying to him, so there's this guy, and he's saying all these things to me, and he's sitting on top of me while we're doing this. So, what do I do here? Yeah. And he said to me, he goes, you go back out there and you kick his butt. Because that's what you are there to do. He goes, and do not come back until you have kicked his butt. So that gave me the confidence from so there's some really good men, and they will say, and he will say to me, he goes, go and do your thing because this is your thing and I'm so proud of you. So it's fabulous. It's fabulous to have that supporter behind you. But yeah,
For
absolutely. Sure. I agree with you that there are these men and they do feel threatened and be as intimidating as they can. It's tough, Lina. It is tough.
It is. But tell me, do you have like women sharing or like having different feedback about the training? They share some private stories. Is it all the time or sometimes because of the Muslim community? I mean, I would, what I was doing, I would leave the option to them if they want to talk about it. They said sometimes talk to me privately about it. But is it the same in UK where they talk to you privately about their issues or something happening to them? And have you, like, this is a very important question, like, have you had someone who's like on the moment being abused or having like facing domestic violence, asking and seeking help? And what did you do about it if you ever encountered that?
Yes, so the ladies that come, so we've got a mix of across the board, like I said, you know, all different religions, backgrounds, etc. And there's those that have got a sort of domestic violence background or abusive background or have been in relationships like that, as well as those that are just there because they just want to learn some self-defense. And that's, so everybody has a reason why they come to learn self-defense. I don't think anybody just suddenly wakes up and says, I'm going to learn self-defense. So there's always a reason behind it, especially for women. For men, maybe not so much. It's a macho thing when they go into martial arts because they want to macho. But I think for women who specifically come to self-defense classes, there's usually a story or a reason behind it. Whether it's that is just because, you know, they're runners and they want to feel safe when they're running in the morning or in the evening late at night, or whether it's because, you know, they've got, like myself at the time, I had children, they want to feel safe. For a lot of the women, though, that do come and end up now finding me, there's a story or there's somewhere. I had one particular student, she's not with me anymore, she's moved on, but she was learning self-defense and she was at the time with an abusive partner and she just needed that courage, something that would give her that courage to be able to step up and say, right, enough is enough. And there's something we practice a lot and we do a lot of in my class, and that's sort of confidence building skills and using your voice. Because as women, I always say to them, one of your biggest tools is your voice. And for a lot of women, using your voice, and even the girls, not just the women, using your voice doesn't come naturally. Whether it's because we're conditioned from a young age for a lot of women and girls that we don't raise our voice and we don't shout and we don't speak up. And that's something we dedicate whole sessions to teach women to be able to raise your voice, to be able to, and with the girls, I have something we call the sass walk. So we do the sass walk where they walk up and down the room. And with each time, more confident. So hold your head up, put your shoulders back, make eye contact, walk with meaning, you know, all these sort of things rather than hunched up. So it's that getting them out of, to teach them that when you are out on the street, this is what confidence needs to look at, whether you feel it inside or not at that time. This is so important. And for women, it was to be able to use your voice and say, so we do a lot of de-escalation techniques. So part of the self-defense that we learn is, it's not just the technique, Lina, it's a whole host of things leading up to that technique. And I always say to the ladies, you can de-escalate and avoid before you have to use the physical intervention. It's a much better self-defense, because not to be there is much better than have to be there and use that self-defense, because you don't know. Ultimately, the person that you are, you know, whether they've got a knife, they've got a gun, it could be anything. So don't be there in the first place. De-escalate enough and make that distance and get away before you have to use the physical skills.
Of course. And
part of that is making distance and using your voice. So we do a lot of practice of, hey, stay away. Don't come near me. I'll ask you to back off. And I mean, I now have a very loud voice and I use my voice. And it goes, there's a pin drop when I speak. And they'll say, but you're so little. Where's that voice come from? And it's teaching women that you have that voice in you and you need to learn to project that voice. And for many of them, it takes a lot of time and practice. And they will say, I don't feel comfortable raising my voice. We just never did. I never did. And I've never, and especially if they've been in a relationship where they just never have, that takes real guts, real guts. And that takes a lot of courage to do. Yeah. But they do, we get there. So this particular lady, we had, so she was a private client of mine and we did, and that's exactly what we did. But everything we did had to be done so step by step and gently and with so much understanding, because there were triggers everywhere. Everything I did, there were triggers. And that's where, for me, the value of what we provide as a female instructor is there, to know that understanding and have that deeper connection to be able to say, okay, I get that completely. But if that was she would never have gone to a male instructor to learn that. And secondly, if that was a male instructor, those triggers at every one of those points would have been too traumatic for her to ever continue learning. So when women say to me, or people say to me, yeah, but why? Why women's classes? For me, that's why we have women's classes. So we can reach out to those kind of women that need that.
I never understand people. They always criticize when a woman is trying to make anything, make a change, or even have a voice. They always criticize her. They always say, you know, if a woman even wants to be a leader in politics, or they always would say, oh, she's too much, or, you know, she's trying too much, or she's trying too hard, or like
it's a constant battle.
It's just a never-ending battle with people, just in general people. But men never get judged by anything they do. Like, they would open different boxing clubs, dojos everywhere, and they never get that kind of questions like about a balance between gender inequality. Like, why you don't have like a female instructor in your gym? They never open that question. And we as self-defense female instructors, we always get attacked. And by the way, like, also my team training, they get attacked. And then they get back to me, and they say sometimes, like, they went to a school, and there's a teacher who threatened one of them. Like, he would challenge her, like, okay, get on a jiu-jitsu fight with me. Do you think
really?
Your system is better than jiu-jitsu? Jiu-jitsu is better. And then they try to, you know, just ego speaks.
It's ego. It's always ego, isn't it? It's always
with men,
always
it's
ego.
always ego. They want to prove that they are better, or the system, because when you are training, you have your own style of training. Even like if you're training Krav Maga, you have your own style of training. But they go against that style of training. It's for them, it's like, because you're a woman, it would be like a weak system in training.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
It's technique, the same technique they learned, the same technique we learned. It's the same, but we enhanced it because you don't understand the women's mindset because you're all dumb.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. And like I said, so on social media, and certainly when if I've done a feature anywhere and think I'll get men, they'll say some things like to me, oh, I could show you, you think you're so tough. And I'm like, I don't.
All the time.
I don't go around saying I'm really tough, look at me. Never, ever. I don't need to do that. But that's a male ego, isn't it? That's very much men and their ego.
It's a male ego. And sometimes there's one kind of martial arts that would become a trend in a country. Like, for example, we had jiu-jitsu as a trend. So everybody was doing jiu-jitsu. Kids, you know, girls, everybody was like, even though it was so expensive, you know, buying the uniform and buying, you know, the gear, everything. The classes were extremely expensive. But when you charge, let's say, a reasonable price for your service, they're like, why you're charging too much for your service? But yeah, it's just, it never, like, I always tell people, and they start comparing, they ask you, you know, are you better than jiu-jitsu? It's like two different different arts. You cannot ask karate, is it better than taekwondo? Or you cannot even
ask.
Yeah, but I think it's that's why people need to get educated. That's why I started the empowerment zone. I think, like, you know, like interviewing someone like you, it's not just me speaking here. There's also another expert in self-defense
saying it was. I mean, this time last year, in fact, November last year, I took my self-defense course over to Qatar. So I've got friends in Doha. So we said, you know what, I'm going to come and visit and let's do a session. So there's a lot of expats in Doha, in Qatar. So we went over there and ran a couple of sessions in Qatar. And it was brilliant. And we had a lot of sort of Qataris, sort of locals, and a lot of sort of expats. So people over from America, the UK, Australia, etc. So women who, for them, they're going to go back at some point back to the UK and the US. And obviously Qatar and Doha are safe, you know, quite safe places for you, certainly compared to the US and the UK. But for them, it was somewhere they were going to have to go back. So we'll learn something. So that was fabulous. Be able to take sort of Krav Maga over to there and teach that for the first time was fantastic. So we had a great time. But it's just spreading the word, isn't it? It's spreading it slowly. But so Jordan and Krav, there isn't a lot of In fact, is there any Krav Maga there now?
There was one, but it got banned, I think, from the country because the teacher was teaching, it was a bit violent. So people
really?
got out of with injuries, so they never reopened it again.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes depends on the teacher, right? Like I've watched I've studied different moves of Krav Maga. It makes a lot of sense on definitely many trainings and techniques, but depends also all the time on the teacher. Like the teacher can teach that method in a hate way, or the teacher can, I always look at, like, for me, kids need role models, like teachers, role models. Like my teacher, I still like think about him every day until now. He was just such an inspiration for me. I know I was doing taekwondo, and you don't really use it in the street, by the way. It's like, it's a sport. It's fully sport, like just an Olympic sport. But he always believed in me when I felt bad. He always told me, you can do this. And he would even like tell me sometimes, like one time I had this, I think I was 15 years old. And my fight was with a woman that was too tall, like I was. And in Taekwondo, if you're really tall, you have a huge chance of winning because your legs are dead. But if you're short, you have a chance of winning if you get closer. But if she's an expert, she wouldn't allow you to get
you to get that close. Yeah.
So he saw me like I was looking at her height. And he told me, look, Lina, she's tall. I said, I know. And he said, you can do this? I said, of course. Why do you
Amazing.
Yeah, I was 15. I told him, why do you even ask me that question? Of course I'm ready. And it was like exactly my next fight, and my heart was like pumping.
Oh, amazing.
And because my mother was in the audience, and I did not want to be beaten up in front of my mom. So, and he said, look at her face. And I looked at her face, and he's like, she doesn't seem smart. And I said, I think you're right. And I got there. It was the most like tough competition I ever had, but I won. I won with 3 points difference.
Oh, wow.
But as he said, she wasn't smart. She was tall, but she was
brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely
teachers has to be mentors.
Yeah, absolutely. So we look at any of our class photos or any of our group pictures or even our gradings, I'm always the little one right on the one side, and there's always the big guys towering over me. And my last grading, so as you go higher up in the grading system, there's less and less women, there's more and more guys, and then, there's often very, very big guys. So my last grading, we had sort of a sparring session at the end, and it was it's 4 guys. So it's 4 multiple attackers. So it's a multiple attacker scenario. So you're on your own. Different attacks coming, so it could be a stab, it could be a punch, it could be a kick. So you're defending multiple attackers. And I remember thinking that they were huge. They were all way bigger than me, at minimum, a foot bigger. And they were all really, really big guys. And I thought, well, I've got to, I know what I know, and I know I'm tough, and I know I can do this. And to get through this grading, there's just no other way. So I did. I went all out. And the thing is, I'm at the perfect height for groin kicks, because, groin kicks are huge and growing. So vulnerable targets and body shots. So although they're taller and bigger, I can hit at the right vulnerable places at the right time. So I did. I just went absolutely all in. And my grading instructor afterwards had said to me, he said it was your sheer guts and determination that I was just like in awe of, because you just gave no worries about it. You just went in power. And it's that mindset as well. Yeah. It's totally about your mindset and having that fighting mindset that, I can do this and I need to do this. And often it's that sort of life and death situation you're in, where it is your fight. It's your mindset that will make all absolutely, that will make all the difference. So your size, everything else, no.
It doesn't matter. So I have 2 questions for you left.
Okay.
1, how can people support you on your journey?
So I'm on, so we've only been going actually at Strike Back for a year now. It's not been that long at all. And of that 6 months has been lockdown. So we're on Facebook and we're on Instagram. On Facebook, just as Strike Back Self-Defense, on Instagram as Strike Back Self, I think it comes up. We have a website, strikebackselfdefense.com, so you can follow everything we do. We have pictures and all things. So great.
That was the answer for the next question, where people can find you. But
that's where we are.
But how people can support you? How do you think they can support?
Just by maybe appreciating women and women doing things and women doing self-defense, and appreciate that there's a space for everybody. Yeah. There's many ways to climb a mountain, as one of my instructors always says, and to appreciate that women have a need for this and to give them that space. And don't feel so insecure about it. And as a woman, I would say, if you're a woman out there, find somewhere where you can go and learn. Because for me, self-defense is a life skill for women. It's an absolute life skill. I've used it. So a couple of years ago, I was in Paris and I got attacked in Paris. I was with my two little boys, and it was Krav that saved me. So I've used it. So I know it works. So I will always say to all the girls and the women, it's a life skill. Learn it. Absolutely.
Definitely. Go out there and learn it. And the last question would be where people can find you.
So they can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, so under Strike Back Self-Defense or Strike Back Self. And we have a website, strikebackselfdefense.com. And that's us. Just
amazing. Thank you so much for this amazing interview. I had so much fun. I don't know about you. I enjoyed it.
It was fun. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to meet you, because I've been following you for a very, very long time. And I think it's little me that gets trolled, but to hear that somebody and you've been around a long, long time, to hear that you still get that is disappointing but reassuring, that it's not just me in the UK that is like this, but it's obviously a global problem.
It's a global problem. It's everywhere. Even they sometimes say the Middle East, or no, it's a global. I got it in Germany. I got people just going after what I do in Germany even. It's an unfortunately global problem, but we're here to solve it. But
just on that flip side, how do you deal with it, Lina? So what's your message to women that are faced with this? How do you deal with it?
For example, how do you deal with it? I would just keep doing what I'm doing. I wouldn't focus a lot on people trying to ruin my path or ruin my journey I would just keep motivated every day of why I'm doing that in the first place, and then keep going. Of course, you need to surround yourself with a support system, as a system that people that believe in you, and then it doesn't matter. You don't care about competition, don't care about hatred, don't care about men that wants to challenge you, or just don't put your energy out there. Put your energy where you're heading. So that's how I deal with it, and that's my message to all women who are facing hate somehow. But thank you so much for joining me, and for everybody watching. Please subscribe on our website, SheFighter.com, if you want to hear more of this interview and amazing people also from different countries. Go ahead and subscribe, and see you next week. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Lina. Thank you very much. Take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.